We were expecting they're going to sit down 2-3 minutes, take it off, walk around.
Mesmerized.
They were still. We actually, you actually suggested a time lapse, I think, because they were sitting in the position for so long.
Like half an hour at a time.
Literally.
Effects that the Quran has. So first and foremost, you could say that the Quran directly affects the one who's making dawah.
Somehow she stumbled across the recitation of the Quran. Yeah, she started listening to it in the house, and then her mum overheard it as well, and they just kept on listening to it.
Breaking out the cage, tell 'em lock the chain. Adrenaline and rage, I may never change. Running through my heart, dilute my pain.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to ReRooted Raw, episode 3. We have Saqib Ali is joining us, Jamal on the decks, and Saqib looks like he hasn't eaten or had a drink of water for the past 4 days.
Because this is take 3, that's why. Take 3. Episode 3, take 3.
But you were more tired. You were more tired and take 1, bro.
Yeah,
like
actually,
you were finished. Now you're a bit more awake. What's wrong, bro? Why are you so tired today?
It's been a long day. And you know, there's been a few delays, of course.
You haven't had food today?
A bit earlier on.
Haven't had any caffeine, any tea?
I could have had more caffeine.
Okay, so
I had a bit of Somali tea now, though.
Okay,
that was tasty.
Okay, and you're still...
Yeah, I'm still a bit of a
trying.
Grinch.
You're trying, but you're trying.
Yeah.
You'll wake up, inshallah.
It's been an interesting day today. Obviously, we had a technical issue.
Yeah.
But Saqib, that's no excuse for you to pretend to be tired now, man. Just waking up, bro.
He's pretending.
Okay.
He's coming from Jamal himself. So, brothers and sisters, let us know what you think about Saqib's tired demeanor on the show, inshallah.
Yeah.
So, bro, today's topic is going to be an interesting one. Ramadan is literally around the corner.
Yeah.
By the time everyone's watching this, I think it's maybe, a day or two.
A few days away.
Inshallah.
3-4 days, yeah.
3-4 days away. Everyone's preparing. And, what better time to do a show on Ramadan, the Quran, and the Dawah, right? So I want to talk about these 3 topics and see what the crossovers are, inshallah. What is the significance of the Quran and Ramadan for you? Sorry, let me rephrase that. What is the significance of the Quran in Ramadan for you?
Yeah, I try to read it on a daily basis. But also, when I do read it, I have the copy of the Quran where there's the English translation by its side, and then I'll read it in Arabic, of course, initially, and then I'll read it English, and then I'll jot down a few notes about what I'm thinking about, like the reflection upon it. When I start reflecting upon the Quran, which you should do, you shouldn't just be a parrot. You should try to really reflect on the words that you're reading. Yeah,
absolutely. And this brings me to the next point, which is, and I think is a very important topic, which is, we talk about, I've just asked you your relationship with the Quran, etc. When we say or talk about having a relationship with the Quran, let's define that. Obviously we can't speak for everyone, but what do we think that actually means? What does it mean to have a relationship with the Quran? How would you define that?
I mean, it's based on a couple of things. Well, I think it's based on 2 main areas. One of them is making sure your recitation's on point, your tajweed's on point. If it isn't, then make sure you're having the lessons and you're sort of building up towards that, right? So you're giving each letter its right within the Quran. So that's a big part of it. Because at times, if you are mispronouncing certain words, then it could actually be quite blasphemous, right? So that's one part of it. But then the second part of it, which I touched upon earlier, is the tadabbur aspect of it, the reflection aspect of it, being able to really sort of contemplate what you're reading and how you can incorporate that into your own life. So if you should fuse the 2 together, really. Yeah. It shouldn't be one or the other. It needs to be 2.
Yeah. No, I'd agree, bro, because if you think about it, initially when the Quran came down to the Prophet ﷺ, the original recipients were Arabs, so that was their mother language, it was their mother tongue, right? So that went hand in hand naturally. They read it, they recited it perfectly, and they understood what was being said, right? But unfortunately, we find ourselves in the position where it's more of a challenge, because for most Muslims these days, Arabic is not their first language. Not even the second language, right? It's not a language they know. And it's interesting because, see, you'll get different pockets. You'll get some Muslims, for them, they define the relationship with the Quran as being, reciting the Quran perfectly, which is important. But you get people that do that for year in, year out. But but when you ask them what they recite mean, they won't know.
I think that's a question non-Muslims might.
I'm gonna get I was gonna get to that because I want to get Jamal's perspective on this in a second. But you'll get that, and then you get others who just read the translation and never really even attempt to try to read the Arabic or read it at all, let alone properly, right? So it's about bridging those two spheres, if you like, together. Now, see, if you look at it from an born Muslim perspective, non-Arab born Muslim perspective,
okay,
we can speak about the Pakistani background, right? For us, it's from childhood. It's like you go to the madrasa, you go to the schools, you learn how to read the Quran, recite the Quran, right? And you learn how to recite it well. You finish the Quran a few times. Well is questionable. Well is questionable, right? It's questionable. But you read it. You read the Quran regularly at the school. You learn how to read it, and then you finish the Quran a few times, and that is, your relationship with the Quran as a Pakistani Muslim child. Right,
and there'll be some gymnastics involved as well.
What do you mean? What do you mean gymnastics?
Did you go to the mosque in the 90s?
Yeah, of course I did.
Okay, and you're a star. The beatdowns, the Royal Rumbles.
Once one brother, it was funny. One brother told me his ustad used to have a rack.
Okay.
And he used to have sticks of different sizes.
Okay.
So it'd be a thin, long one, a chunky one, and then there would be different sizes alongside
it's like
that,
a dojo,
and different materials, right?
Yeah.
And he would call them different names.
Okay.
And he would call them like Twix, Snickers, Mars, and he'd have these names for them. And literally, depending on what the crime was, he would pick the specific stick for that crime.
And on the flip side, now I think my brother was picking up his son from the madrasa, and then he was just waiting outside.
Yeah.
And then on the way out, the imams would actually hand out sweets to the kids.
MashaAllah.
And then he would say, "Oh yeah, so but back in my day we used to get beats. Now these lots are getting sweets."
Yeah.
So it's just like
there is a crossover there.
Yeah.
So the thinking was in process a long time ago.
Yeah, but in different.
It's
formats.
just the stick changed to sweet.
Yeah,
The name stayed the same, pretty much. But Jamal, let me ask you, bro. So that's the sort of non-Arab born Muslim perspective, right? Which is you learn how to read the Arabic quite fluently, may not be the best of, your tajweed may not be on point, but you do that, right? Now, from a revert perspective, someone that comes to Islam, that doesn't have that cultural background of reciting the Quran, and you're approaching this book, which for one, you don't know the original language, not even have to recite it. And secondly, when you read a translation, we know the Quran doesn't read like normal books, right? Beginning, middle, and end. How was that for you, bro, when you initially engaged with the Quran when you first became Muslim?
I think it was really, it was such a new experience, even the whole concept of reading from right to left and things like this, learning the Arabic and these new words. But for myself, we had an amazing brother, a friend who, mashallah, he used to, he taught us. And although it was a little bit unconventional, and some people used to say, for example, we'd learn swad and dwad.
Okay, yeah.
And, instead of swad and dwad, but...
Okay, so you got the Pakistani tajweed like we did. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. but it was an amazing brother, mashallah.
Yeah, mashallah,
and,
mashallah.
just memorizing, learning the first verses of the Quran, the small verses. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And also, I think that many... new Muslims, they think it's an amazing achievement just to even learn to recite the Quran in Arabic. Very, very powerful, and I think it's something that people don't really think about very much, because once you've learnt it, even though you don't actually know the meaning of every part of the Quran, but when you are reciting the Quran in Arabic from start to finish, not the Quran, when you're doing your salah from start to finish in Arabic, you feel some, it's amazing for the self-esteem as well.
But wasn't it ever, would you say, a frustration maybe at some points where you'd feel like, now I can read this, big achievement, but I really want to know what I'm also reading? So would you refer to a translation sometimes? How would you do it? What was your sort of dynamic during that period? Like, would you read it, then refer to a translation, read a parallel text Quran with English, Arabic? How would you try to sort of navigate that space?
I mean, everyone's different, but, for myself, when you learn Fatiha and you understand the meaning of Fatiha, that was quite nice. But, there are so many different ways that new Muslims approach it. Like, for example, some Muslims, they go away, even to Egypt. They used to go to Egypt back then, spend 6 months, and they could like understand everything. You know, but what was amazing, I remember with one of my teachers, was we were learning something. I forgot what surah it was, and how he used to say that there isn't really an English translation for this word, right? But the more I started to learn, I mean, and I don't want to let the viewers think that I'm kind of like I can speak Arabic and stuff like that. I can't. I was one of those lazy ones, unfortunately. But it was like I started to understand what he meant. Like, for example, in the Arabic, that particular word, it had more meaning. And that was really profound. That was an amazing experience for me, like to know that, okay, now I understand as I was reading it. But as with most people, we started to slip out of it. And, you know, then it became, you know, not the same, it became worse. Like, you start to lose it. You lose it very, very easily.
Yeah, you do. Because I remember when I stopped, because obviously I came from the background where, you know, you learn how to read the Quran. And then there was a period of maybe over a decade where I completely turned away from Islam. And I completely forgot how to read. Yeah. Although you do remember bits and pieces, it was easy for me to learn again. But I had to literally relearn over again. But my biggest frustration, so in a way I could put myself to a degree in the shoes of a revert from this perspective. When I was in that struggle again, when I started practicing again, I was like, I tried to read the Quran, I can't read it. But when I started learning how to read it, one of my biggest things was that I know, like from reading translations, that Allah says this is guidance for humanity. This is, you know, hudan lil muttaqin, it's guidance for the people of taqwa, right? So, and for it to be guidance, it has to be understood.
Yeah.
So I started my own journey of trying to, you know, learn the Arabic a few years ago, right? So where I can read the Quran directly in Arabic and understand it. And when you start to taste it in Arabic, like you said, it's something totally different. Yeah. It's different. Yeah. I mean, and at that point, I remember having this realization that, you know, man, we haven't really, as a community, understood the importance of really taking to the study of this book. And that means not only learning how to read and recite properly, but to make the effort to learn the Arabic to the degree where you can understand the Quran. Right, so I can't speak Arabic. I speak very little, bits and pieces, right? But if you really focus on learning to read the Arabic of the Quran, it's not that difficult. As you said, some brothers and sisters, they go abroad for 6-7 months, they do a few courses, and they can understand some of the Quran directly in Arabic, and that's powerful, right? But unfortunately, a lot of Muslims don't take it to that level, right?
You know what, as well, Imran? What's one of the biggest embarrassments that we have is when you're giving dawah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might say something to someone, you might mention an Arabic word or something from the Quran, and then they say to you, like, you know, what does that mean? And you're just stumped, and it just makes you look like I don't know what word I can use without getting us into trouble here, but you look like an idiot.
Yeah, it's
because
like
you know that you might have recited something from the Quran, like you open it up and they ask you, and you can't explain it. Even sometimes some of the simplest things as well, you know, you actually, they just have no idea what you're saying, and it doesn't look good for us, especially when we should know that particular verse.
And it's not mastering it; it's about going on that journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like me saying to you, Saqib, bro. Like, I quote you this or just say in a very passionate way some sort of, I don't know, a poem in French, yeah, and I make it sound really nice and powerful, and then you turn around and say to me, all right, sounds nice, what does that mean? And I was like, I don't know what it means. What would your perception be then?
I'm like, je ne sais quoi, je m'appelle.
So you probably got an F in your French and GCSEs.
I didn't do French.
Okay. That's good for not doing French. But it wouldn't, I mean, how would your opinion of me be at that point?
Yeah, I think you're a bit of a, to be frank, I'll say you're a bit of a hollow Muslim. To be like, oh, this Muslim doesn't even know Arabic. And I think that's a bit of a shock factor as well for a lot of non-Muslims and new Muslims when they understand, when they realize that a lot of Muslims are not Arab speaking, and they don't, and the majority of them don't actually understand Arabic as well.
Yeah, but I really don't think it's an excuse for Muslims not to make the effort to try it and learn. Be on that journey, right?
Yeah,
not that you'll master it. We have to be on that journey, man.
I mean, and that's the thing, you know, Chris, from the first episode, it's not only non-Muslims, Jamal, it's actually new Muslims as well that actually keep you on your toes. Because they'll ask you questions like, oh, why do we do this? Why do we do that? What does Surah Fatiha mean? Just one of those ones. And it's like, you have to think about it. Okay, you have to go through the verses in your head, and you're like, okay, this is what this means, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, even when he's going to the salah, it's like, oh, what does this mean? What does this mean? And you kind of need to be on point. But
Yeah, because, and I can relate to that, bro. Look, if you're, like, again, put your non-Muslim, new Muslim hat on for a second, guys, yeah? I want you to really think about this. We're asking you to engage in this practice 5 times a day, right? Which is where you're doing some actions, right? Of prostrating, bowing, standing, etc. And we're telling you when you're doing this, you're connecting with your Creator. We're also telling you that you're having a conversation with your Creator, right? We're telling them these 2 things. You're connecting with your Creator, the salah is connection, and it's a conversation with your Creator. Okay, well, what am I saying to my Creator? And what is He saying back to me? See, for me, bro, I get it. You know, that there's an emphasis in our community on tajweed, which is important, right? We know every word recited correctly has a reward, right? So we understand this. But we have to also realize that they need to know what they're saying. We need to know what we're saying in our salah, right? I'm just talking about this from a general perspective, because if it is a connection between me and Allah, well, how am I connecting with Him? What am I saying to Him? And what is He saying back to me? You know, when I'm saying Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, for example, in prostration, what am I saying in that prostration? You know, when I'm reading Fatiha, you know, what is it that I'm saying? What is it that I'm acknowledging? You know, we need to give them something so they realize, they know, they start to learn what they're saying, what the meanings of what they're saying is.
Yeah, I mean, for the new Muslim, it's probably easier for them to actually learn what the actual words mean before they actually recite it. I mean, because at the moment, Chris, what he's done is he's hacked the Surah Fatiha in a way. And that's what we kind of do in the new Muslim retreats, where we'll get them to sort of memorize, like as if you're memorizing lyrics. And they'll may sort of mumble it here and there, and they'll use transliteration or rather than, you know, as a crutch, rather than trying to learn all the letters and everything. All the Arabic letters, of course, and then do it the long way.
Yeah.
So he's at that phase, and I've heard his recitation. Actually, it's okay, mashallah, but obviously he needs a lot of ironing out.
Has he asked you like about what does this mean? What I'm saying? Has he asked you that question?
Yeah. So I think maybe when we were walking towards the office, he did. We were just going through Surah Fatiha line by line. And then I'll recite in Arabic, and I'll be like, okay, this is what this means. And it's one of those ones. But you do have to think about it. Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier on. He'll keep you on your toes. Or that new Muslim would keep you on your toes.
Yeah, of course, bro. And then it makes you realize as well, because sometimes I've had this where they ask you that question, and it makes you think in your head, well, I should really know what it means, because this is my connection with Allah.
I mean, the best way to learn is to teach anyway. Yeah. So, you know, being a mentor is... And I'm sure we'll have some sort of volunteer link within the description about the service we're providing for new Muslims.
Yep.
Like a buddy system of sorts where born Muslims or even new Muslims who are a lot more well-grounded within Islam can get buddied up with a new Muslim within their area. But yeah, it's a blessing, man. I actually like it. We had our first like sort of proper tajweed lesson last week. We're using this book that Zishan from Smile to Jannah pushed out.
Yeah.
In a video recently. But yeah, it's a really, really good book. And I'm kind of I'm relearning things again.
Yeah.
Knowing, I mean, because initially when we started opening up the book, like there's diagrams of the mouth and the throat. And then, you know, like where does the ayn come from and all the letters.
Yeah.
He initially saw it, and the breakdown of it is really comprehensive. It's really good. It's based on 45 lessons. And I said, okay, what's the plan? You want to do this in a year? And it's like, yeah, okay, let's do it in a year. So plan is to have a lesson a week, and we're going to try to hit a year.
See, that's amazing. But this is what I would say to accompany that, to sort of add to that. It doesn't take much these days, man. You can get apps with word-for-word translations of the Quran. Give them a word-for-word translation of Surah Fatiha. Yeah. Or at least a translation, line-by-line translation, so they can start linking what word means what. So when they're reciting the Fatiha, you know, when they say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, they know that they are standing in front of Allah, and they're acknowledging that all thanks and praise belongs to Allah, you know, the Lord of the worlds. So you know, so I don't know, man. I just have this. Maybe it's just me, but always have had this gripe, which is, look, I'll put it this way. Dr. Israr Ahmed, one of the really great Quranic scholar, he once said, he presented an extreme example. He said, look, we have Quran recitation competitions. We have somewhere in Pakistan a few decades ago, they had this thing where they wrote the Quran with gold thread, right? So they made the whole Quran like this. It's in a museum somewhere. And he said, we're doing all of these things with the Quran. And he said, is this why the Quran was revealed? So we have competitions that we write the Quran with gold thread. Why was it revealed? It's guidance for humanity, So why are we forgetting that people need to know what it says? And it's easy these days, bro, because go 200 years back, 300 years back, you would be pressed to find a good translation of the Quran that wasn't done by a Christian missionary with a certain objective, right? But now you have really nice translations, man. Loads. Dr. Mustafa Khattab's translation that we print, the Clear Quran, amazing translation. One of the best translations you can say that's out there. Dr. Abdul Halim's translation, so many translations, say international, and the list goes on. Right, so at least we should, encourage. And some people are already doing this, but I think we as Muslims need to do this more. Is to learn what we're reading and reciting properly, inshallah, and share with non-Muslims too, man. And Muslims, sorry.
And you touched on a point about how we incorporate it into our dawah as well, and how non-Muslims could sort of see the holes if we don't have that true connection with the Quran itself, and the Arabic of it, and the English of it as well.
So let's take the discussion there now, inshallah. That's where I wanted to go, but you've preempted it.
Okay, I preempted it. Okay.
The Quran and Dawah, right? This is another big topic. But what do you guys think? What's if I was to ask you the question, what role does the Quran play in the Dawah? Now we may think, well, it goes without saying, But let's really think about this. What role does the Quran play in the Dawah for you?
Let me flip it.
All right, go and flip it.
I'm gonna ask you a question.
Just waking up slowly.
Yeah.
Without caffeine.
Without caffeine.
Yes.
This is. I was gonna say something, forget it. Okay, so, actually, I'm gonna ask this question later on. But actually, you kind of got a heads up about it, but I'll ask it again. So
this is Sakid's moment of
putting someone on the spot. Yeah. It's not a glory moment. It's nice, because you usually do it with everyone else.
Yeah, go on.
So what's that one ayat from the Quran that you would mention to a non-Muslim to get them to sort of delve in deeper, discover it further, for them to actually pick up a copy of the Quran and actually do proper research into Islam?
That's a good question. Jamal, what do you think? What's that one ayah that you would share with a non-Muslim to get them to do research in the Quran? He's too tired to pick up on it. I've nicely transitioned.
I don't know. Sakib, what do you think?
Oh, right. This is like pass the parcel, isn't it?
Now, I think for me personally, there's loads of ayat, but one that really sticks and I think works for people that may have become arrogant or uninterested in the question of God and religion, is where Allah says, I think it's in Surah Nahl, in the beginning of Surah Nahl, where Allah says, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ, that He created man from just from a despised drop of fluid, dirty drop of fluid, and almost instantly this creation, this being, stands in front of God as a challenger, as a contender, challenging God. Because that's a real, reality check, man. And if you think about it, bro, subhanAllah, especially the times we live in, we wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, we think that's how I've always been. This clever, intelligent, 30-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever the case is. We forget that we come from literally nothing. And if you rewind the tape back, imagine we were all sitting here right now, we could rewind the tape back quickly on reality right now. And those 34 years of your life, I don't know how old Jamal is, but mashallah, he looks 33 years of your life, Jamal. Yeah. We rewind the tape back. We rewind the tape back quickly. What's going to happen? We're all going to shrink, right, into children and into babies and then into some just fetuses and then into this drop of liquid, which is going to stain this chair that we're sitting on and maybe, seep into the material of the chair. That's what we are. That's where we come from, and that's our reality. And we think that we have some privilege, we're in some privileged position to be arrogant against God now, just because, we're all grown up now and we're intelligent.
I was just visualizing that movie. Was it Benjamin Button? Was it the one with Brad Pitt?
Yeah, Benjamin Button.
Where he kind of reverse ages.
Really?
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
scene there.
Yeah, it's a pretty strange. He's born as an old man, and he ends up with
SubhanAllah.
yeah.
Very boring.
It was a bit, yeah. I don't even remember watching the whole thing. It was a bit of a long one. It's not one of his best movies, but anyway.
But you get the point, right?
But I mean, yeah. I mean,
for me, that will be a trigger verse.
Yeah.
That's what I would use.
Imran, you mentioned that. I was gonna say, addressing Saqib's question about which ayah people use. But is it fair to say that commonly, whenever someone is reciting an ayah to a non-Muslim in Dawah, it's more often than not some of the scientific verses,
Yeah.
rather than, for example, we weren't created other to worship Allah.
He needs a drink, bro. He needs
We
a drink.
don't-
Throat's a bit dry.
We don't say that. We don't ask that. We always present some of the scientific ones, which then presents a problem later on, possibly.
Saqib?
scientific miracles in the Quran.
Well, I think it depends on how you present the ayah to them. Like if we just, for example, let me think. Okay, where Allah says, I can't think of a direct ayah right now, but where Allah says in Surah, in the 3rd chapter, Al-Imran, where He says, Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ardi wa ikhtilafi al-layli wan nahari. So indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of the night and day are signs, right? So I think going off the meaning of that verse, which is, Allah is directing us towards His creation and telling us that there are signs in creation. Therefore, there are signs in creation and we have to pick up on them and share them. But I think it's how we present them. So if we take a verse which is commonly used in the Dawah to link to science and present as a scientific miracle, and not do that because that has issues and flaws, that approach of claiming scientific miracles. But if we just present those verses as saying, look, here is God in the Quran over 1400 years ago speaking about the natural world and natural phenomenon, things that are surround us and all around us that you can see yourselves and observe, we can do that. I think that's powerful, bro.
Yeah, I think those ones are okay. They don't present a problem. But, in more recent times, we've found that, the atheists, for example, they're coming up with maybe arguments that would confuse maybe the lesser educated Muslim.
Yeah.
So when they come and produce these proofs and evidences in Dawah and then they get confronted, it's not that they're wrong, but it's because
it's how they presented the argument.
Yeah.
So it's not the ayah's wrong, of course not, but it's how they've articulated the ayah and the context they've given to it, which is scientific miracle.
Yeah,
instead of saying scientific miracle, instead if you just say, look, natural phenomenon, God is speaking about the world around you, that is a sign. I mean, how do you expect all of this to come about by random chance? How's that going to work, right? On that level, it works. It's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
But don't set yourself up to fall, right? This is another, I mean, we don't need to go that deep. And this is what Saqib, I think, going to your point that you always make, which is keep things simple. Don't get technical. Don't get philosophical unnecessarily. Don't get too overly logical. Just keep it simple.
But yeah, there's that element of it also. But I mean, one of the main components of this show, this podcast series, is to sort of contemporize it and make it for the listeners out there who are interacting with the most non-Muslims. And how do you engage them about speaking about Islam, right? So now Ramadan's only a few days away, yeah, and you're gonna get those questions. Why are you starving yourself?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Do you really ask that type of question these days, bro?
I think they do.
Especially with the advent of intermittent fasting,
Yeah,
some
but
of
that-
our sabur is engaging in right now.
Yeah, but yeah, he comes up with his own bid'ah. But anyway, but I was gonna say, but it's you still get those questions. I know there's gonna be plenty of listeners.
Like, how
out
can you
there.
not drink water as well?
Yeah, not even water,
Yeah.
or like one of those ones. And at the moment, it's been getting easier and easier because it's going earlier into the year, right? But still, it's around 18-hour fast, 16-hour fasts, something like that. But it's a case of being able to sort of come up with the right replies and the right answers. Because I used to give a reply of
What's your problem?
No, it wasn't. It was
What's
someone.
your problem?
Now, a colleague he asked me, "Why are you fasting? Or what's the meaning behind fasting?" And I'd say, "Oh, it's you starve the body to feed the soul." That's what I used to say, and it was like an okay answer. Sounded cool.
It does sound nice.
I mean, how would you answer?
Hey, listen, World Dawah Day. No, actually, what's your goal?
Okay.
You remember
So
that
World Dawah
campaign?
Day. There's a new thing about World
Dawah Day.
Yeah,
no.
What's your goal? Yeah, that's a good.
What's your goal?
That's a good campaign.
We were at the Millennium. No, not the. What's the wheel? What's the wheel?
The
called?
wheel.
The eye.
The
The
eye.
Eye, right? London Eye. And we were just doing some filming with Sheikh Abdurrahim Green and a few other people, right? And Hamza was there as well. And then there was this little conversation with a Sikh came up and was asking us questions. And he was being a bit antagonistic, right? And I think he was doing it on purpose. Then what happened is he asked a question about, why do you Muslims fast? So there were about 2 or 3 people there, and I was there. I had my camera with me. And one person was sort of saying, well, the health benefits and blah, blah, blah. And he wasn't happy with this. And someone else started saying something else as well. And then he sort of came to me and just asked me, and I said, well, because Allah says in the Quran. And it was really weird because not only did he...
So the Sikh guy said this to you?
Yeah, he was asking this question, right? But not only was he happy with that answer, it's like that's what answer he wanted. And he said he didn't like all these other answers about how it's good for you and health-wise, whatever. Yeah. When I said to him, it's in the Quran. We were told to do it in the Quran. And it was like, yeah, that's exactly what you're supposed to say. And I find that very strange. Why this guy, asking us these questions and stuff like that? But that's the reality, is that, obviously that's what it is. And I like to also say as well, like, obviously in the Quran, Allah says it's prescribed for you, and as a doctor prescribes medicine to someone, and people like that answer. So it's quite interesting, and it's in the Quran as well.
And what's amazing about that is like you guys are drawing the link between the Dawah and the Quran here, which is sometimes we shy away from giving the direct, easy, and probably the most effective answer, which is go straight to the Quran and tell them what Allah says in regards to certain questions that they have. But what we end up sometimes doing is we choose to instead give our own answers, like Saqib gave his very poetic response to his friend. But we do this sometimes.
That was my hipster answer.
I've done that 101 times as when I was working in the city. I can't, we do this. And for me, I don't know if it applies across the board. You guys can chime in here. For me specifically, I was a bit afraid, of introducing them to the Quran, right? And this was back in the day. That was number one. And the other thing was, if I'm being really honest, maybe it was that I just didn't have the appreciation that I should have had for the Quran and the impact and power of the Quran in the Dawah. And that's why I didn't choose to do that, right?
And I think, and that's a good segue on how to build upon that, replying to that non-Muslim question about the Quran, right? So if I was in a position to go time machine 7-8 years ago and, reply again, it'll be more along the lines of, it's a special month, right? This was a special month because this is when the Quran was revealed. And the Quran just means, the word for it, the translation of it is recitation. That's what it means, right? And then I'll actually invite him to say, would you like to actually listen to the Quran? And I think that's a really tangible way of actually progressing it further.
Because that itself, again, something very that we undermine so much, bro, is let alone the fact that we undermine directly referencing the Quran in our da'wah, right? But on top of it, we further undermine just the impact of the recitation of the Quran on people, bro.
Yeah. I mean, you get them to listen to it, and then it's this case of like, they would be able to hear how it's not of this world and how it's divine.
Bro, it reminds me, remember we did the Jesus exhibition? I think you were there, Jamal, as well, during the Jesus exhibition time.
Yeah.
And we had a Quran booth. So we were getting people to sit down and listen to the Quran. Jamal, you recorded it, I think. There was every single person that sat and listened to it would just, we were expecting they're going to sit down 2-3 minutes, take it off, walk around.
Mesmerized.
They were still. You actually suggested a time lapse, I think, because they were sitting in the position for so long.
Like half an hour at a time.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, and I've seen that everywhere. I've seen that in Mexico and other places. It doesn't matter.
If you guys have the clip, it'll be really nice to just put it in, maybe as a quick time lapse of just one of the ladies sitting there and just listening, and she's just still.
I think she was that mother. Yeah,
and she was
that
still.
Mother, she actually stayed with us for most of the day. She could not leave. Do you remember she had a child with her, and she was with us. She listened to the Quran, and she just spent so long with us.
It's just like, I And that's like that's like a good follow up, something practical with your reply.
Yeah,
'Cause
and
you
it's
could
something
say-
easy you could do as well, right?
Yeah, it's just like and I've actually done that. Actually, I met some Colombian guy on the train once. He's asking for directions, and then you just get talking.
Yeah.
And then the whole coffee shop Dawah thing. You just buy him a coffee, get talking, and I got to speak to him, and he said like he's been traveling all around the world. He's been to India, to temples in India, and all these other places. Yeah, just to find some sort of spiritual awakening. Yeah, and then I think what I did was I set him a recitation of Quran like Surah Ar-Rahman. The typical. Everyone loves that listening to that chapter, but instead it was another chapter I think he preferred listening to, and then we just got talking over that, and I should follow up with him, to be honest, see where he is. But it's an easy way for them to just get more involved in Islam.
Well, it reminds me when I used to do this chat thing for an organization, e-dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm mentioning them. Yeah, brilliant brothers. Yeah, so they had this chat thing. Yeah, which we have a chat thing as well now. Which obviously which we were collaborating on to some degree, or we did at a point. But the point being, I used to do the chat for them, and I was surprised at some of the conversations I'll get into. Once I got into a conversation with two Christian ladies that worked at a reception in a church. And what they were doing secretly when they were at the reception in the church, they were watching Islamic videos and they were listening to the recitation of the Quran. And I was talking to them like, when we hear this is just amazing. It just is so peaceful. And I sent them the recitation of Surah Maryam. And they listened to it, but so the conversation I was having for over a couple of weeks with them, and then suddenly, I think 2 or 3 times I had with them on my sessions, and then they just disappeared one day. I don't know, maybe they got caught. Allah knows best, but or maybe they were guided. Allah knows best, inshallah. But it was just it blows your mind as to how the recitation, the sound of the Quran impacts people. Bro.
Oh my God. Okay, so I think I spoke to you about this, Jamal. Okay, so I'm trying to revive this whole writing up posts again for the blog and everything. So I'm like, I'm feeling like a journalist. This is me like Dilly Hussein, journalist mode, right? So I just asked Andres, who's in charge of the Latin American team. We have several du'at in Latin America, right? And I asked him, who's a good guy who has an interesting story for me to do a little write up on. And then he said, Brother Salim in Argentina. He's actually Ecuadorian, but he's moved over to Argentina. And so he's our outreach specialist, or our iERA sort of rep in Buenos Aires, in the capital, right? And then I just generally, bit of a chit chat, lasted for a good hour. SubhanAllah, he told me this story. So he said, there was a woman. Actually, let me rewind to give you a perspective of what the woman experienced. Right, so she got interested into Turkish culture somehow. Yeah, so probably watching that TV show Ertugrul or something. Yeah, but anyway, somehow she stumbled across the recitation of the Quran. Yeah, she started listening to it in the house, and then her mum overheard it as well, and they just kept on listening to it.
SubhanAllah.
And then I think she was in her 40s, the mother was in her 80s. Anyway, the mother ended up in hospital. Yeah, she's in the hospital bed, and then she just says to the daughter, you know what, it just feels like I don't have much left. I don't have much time in this world left. Right? And it's, I know this is the truth, just from the recitation alone, right? And then she says, please do some research. I need to find out what this is, and I need to become a follower. Anyway, the daughter, she does her research on how to do the Shahada, goes over to the hospital, they go through the Shahada, and then she dies.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah. And then after that, SubhanAllah, the daughter was, subservient to her mother while she was alive. She's also subservient to her after her death, right? And she thought, okay, I want her to be buried like a Muslimah as well. So she did a quick search, and Salim's quite active online, mashallah, and she found his details, and then he just followed through. He did her rites of the janazah, of the funeral prayer, right? and then she couldn't make it. It was like a weekend. I think it was a Saturday, right? And then the next day, she went over to meet him, and she just wanted to really thank him. Thank you for respecting her rights as a Muslimah and everything. And then she said to him, anyway, they spoke for a little bit, and then subhanallah, she did a shahada as well. So she's doing the new Muslim classes and everything, and so yeah, it's just like, it's amazing, and that's just from the recitation of the Quran.
You had a video which is related to what we're talking about now as well that you wanted to share.
Yeah, so this video is pretty much a perspective from a non-Muslim who's become infatuated with the recitation of the Quran, and this was a documentary done years ago, and it's a recitation competition in Egypt where they used to hold it annually, I think, and yeah, so let's just see what she has to say about the Quran.
I was just grabbed by the sound. I was a music student. I came to Cairo to learn Arabic originally, and heard this and wanted to find out how it worked. But nobody before had put the melody or the artistry of it together. And then the melody has to be completely improvised. I mean, it comes inspired by the moment.
Okay, so pretty much Christina Nelson is the world's top non-Muslim expert on Quran reciting. So she has a background on music, and she could really appreciate the melody of it. And actually later on in the documentary, she explains how this is something completely different. The melody of it is just on a different level to something that she's ever come across before. But yeah, it's just an example.
SubhanAllah. Yeah. On that note, bro, we're talking about the Quran and Dawah.
Yeah.
Let's go to Sheikh Fahad.
All the way in Texas.
All the way in Texas.
All right.
And see what the cowboy sheikh, mashallah, not meaning that in any bad way, because normally use cowboy in a
cowboy, like a literal yeehaw cowboy.
Yeah, or when we say someone's a cowboy, they're just all over the place. Sheikh Fahad, totally opposite to this, may Allah bless him. Salam Sheikh Fahad, how are you?
Yeehaw.
Wa alaikum assalam wa
Did you just say yeehaw?
Alhamdulillah. How are you guys?
Sheikh, he just said yeehaw.
What's that?
He said yeehaw. Say again.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. All right. Dude, we don't ride around on horses and stuff over here, you know?
Yeah, anyway, we don't have much time, Sheikh. Let me get right to the point. We can do the jokes privately after. Sheikh, very important question and part of the segment of the show. I wanted to ask you a question, which is, what is the link? What would you believe the link is between the Quran and Dawah?
The link between Quran and Dawah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I mean, I think the link, in fact, is multifold. There's a number of different effects that the Quran has. So first and foremost, you could say that the Quran directly affects the one who's making Dawah. So your own spiritual state will have an effect on how you're calling people to Islam. So the closer you are to the Quran, the more you read the Quran, the better your dawah is from the point of view of your own spirituality. So that's number one. Number two, the second thing is the closer and more connected you are with the Quran, the more you use it in your dawah. And so from the second perspective is that it has effect on the mud'i, the one you're calling to Islam. And perhaps a third effect is that it's not just the rational arguments that you're taking from the Quran, but you're actually taking elements that make the Quran multi-layered. And I don't mean this in the Hamza Zortzis meaning of multi-layered. What I mean is that the Quran not only has an attraction to the heart by way of the arguments, but it has an attraction to the heart on, let's say, the auditory sensation. So there's a phenomena that happens when you hear the Quran being recited. That's very different than hearing anything else being recited. So you have that level. Then you have the level of the words themselves and how they're put together. There's a beauty in that, right? And so I think that kind of multi-layered, it's not just the argument, but it's also the words, it's also how the words are recited. And when you combine the idea of the words, how they're recited, and the meaning, it actually gives you yet another layer. So for example, like we all know in Surah Al-Fatiha, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. right? So Ar-Rahman, so the term Rahman is on the fa'al form, right? It's basically, it means something that is like full, okay? So for instance, when you say Ghadban, you're like full of rage, full of anger, okay? So Rahman is overwhelming mercy. Now, when you look at the term Ar-Rahim, it's on the fa'il form, which is something that's constant and it keeps on going. So you think of something that's constant, like the word tawil, someone who's tall. They're tall, and that's a type of permanence, and they're not tall one day and short the next. Now, that's the meaning. Now, when you hear the actual recitation, you find that in Rahman, there's a fullness, and Rahim, there's a type of extension, which points to the consistency or the constancy. So when you recite it, Ar-Rahman, even the sound itself is giving you that fullness. And then you go to Ar-Rahim, and it's like there's a consistency. So you've got the level of the auditory sensation coupled with the meaning, and that's just one layer. So, I mean, the Quran, I mean, you can keep on going on and on with the benefits it has. But just to summarize again, there's a benefit for the da'iyah, the one who's making dawah, their own spiritual state, connecting with the Quran, connecting with the words of Allah. And then that has an effect on the people you're calling as well, your own spiritual state. And of course, using the Quran in your dawah is yet another level.
So Shafat,
Jazakallah khair, but so let me be a bit more specific and just ask you one more question. Obviously, the initial question I asked you goes without saying, right? Dawah and the Quran go hand in hand, and you've given us some beautiful examples of that. But if I was to ask you specifically, so practically when someone is giving dawah, would you say referring to the Quran, using the Quran in your dawah is a necessary thing that one has to do when giving dawah, when we're making the call? Or can it be the case someone could give dawah without ever referring to the Quran and still give da'wah? Maybe that can happen, but would you say to give effective da'wah, it's extremely important? And would you even go as far as saying necessary for someone involved in da'wah to be not only studying the Quran, but utilizing it in their da'wah?
So I think necessary might be a bit of a stretch, right? I don't want to give the impression that if you don't have the Quran, you don't know how to read it, or you can't, you may have trouble memorizing, that you can't make dawah. So I don't want to go as far as saying like it's absolutely necessary, no Quran, no dawah. I don't want to say that, right? Because obviously the Quran is expounding upon those things that are in the fitrah, itself. And so in order for us to speak about that, we don't necessarily need the Quran in order to attract people's fitrah to the religion of Islam. That being said, I think it's extremely important to have the Quran as part of your toolbox when you're calling someone to Islam. Look, I'll give you just a quick personal experience. A few years ago, there was an ex-Muslim, and his parents basically flew him into Houston to come speak with me. And so with him, I went through, I think, as many of the arguments I could related to the existence of God. And we're talking non-Quranic, I shouldn't say non-Quranic, but not directly related to the Quran. So we went through, the argument from dependency. We went through, the Quran's linguistic miracle, which is not directly the Quran, but just showing the Quran can only be from Allah, and so on and so forth. Now, after a 3-hour conversation, I just mentioned to him, I said, look, before you leave, because we were speaking about something known as the ontology of the soul. In other words, what is the human being made of, right? And I mentioned some ayat from Surah Sajda, right? And I think I've spoken to you about this before as well, where there's iltifat, there's a grammatical shift. And when I mentioned that to him, he was blown away. And so that 3.5 hours I spent with him, or however long I spent with him, he said, you should have started with this, right? Because now I really have to just go back and study this now, because I've never heard anything like this, So the point, that I'm trying to make is that the more you use the Quran in your dawah, the better it's going to be. And that can be on whatever sort of person you're speaking to. Now, there's also the question of how do you use the dawah? How do you use the Quran in your dawah? And that may be a separate question.
Okay, so this is a scenario. MashaAllah, you do a lot of work on the university campuses, right? and there's a non-Muslim who approaches your table, your Dawah table, and they're kind of interested about, they're thinking about picking up a translation of the Quran, but they're not too sure. Which ayat from the Quran would you highlight to that non-Muslim for them to sort of pick it up and delve in deeper?
So, you know, I mean, I think it would depend on their background as well. But if I was just kind of, if you asked me for a kind of a vanilla response, like what would I start off with if I knew nothing about the person, I would say Surah Al-Fatiha is always good, you know, because, you know, like Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in Madarij al-Salikin, if you took all of the revelation from the past and summarized it, that would be the Quran. If you took all of the Quran and summarized it, that would be Surah Al-Fatiha. In fact, if you took all of Surah Al-Fatiha and summarized it, that would be Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. So that's going to give you the crux of the message. So if I knew absolutely nothing about them and I had like just a few minutes to convince them to read the Quran, I would take them to Surah Al-Fatiha personally. But if I knew background information, then that's a different case, because then I could know something about their personality, their situation at home, what they're searching for, how they're viewing questions about existence, and then there may be other ayat that would be more applicable. Allah knows best.
Okay, so we've talked about ideals, right? Obviously, you know, you've highlighted how important the role of the Quran is in the da'wah. What's your analysis of the current situation of the da'wah in regards to the role the Quran plays in the da'wah?
Do you want my honest answer, or just you want me to?
We want your raw answer on this show.
The raw answer, the honest answer is that we are pitifully far away from the Quran. I mean, I'm just being real now, right? I mean, if you look at the people that are making dawah right now, how much of their dawah is Quranic based? And we really have to say that it's you know, I mean, maybe it's Quranic based in the sense of the dawah training they got had ideas from the Quran and things like that. That's fine. But how many du'at are actually using the Quran in their dawah to call non-Muslims to Islam? I would have to say it's very few, you know? And the fact that the Quran is so powerful in this area, you know? And it just kind of shows a lack of our own connection with the Quran as well, you know? Because you can't use the Quran if you don't have a connection with the Quran. So that would be my quick analysis here. At least in the States. Maybe you guys are better in the UK and all of you guys are hafads walking around, you know, giving people dawah with the Quran.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. May Allah bless you. Thank you for coming on. All right, bro. So that was Sheikh Fahad.
Yeah.
Some, you could say an intense ending right there.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, I would have to agree with him, you know, that we are failing, all of us, in regards to, I don't know if utilizing is the right word and it's respectful, but utilizing the Quran in our da'wah.
We're doing it justice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and you know, I guess in all spheres. And we're all failing on all spheres in regards to the Quran as far as our personal connection is concerned, and the da'wah is concerned. You know, I would have to echo what he says. First and foremost, looking at my own da'wah, yeah, before pointing any fingers, but I would have to echo exactly what he's saying. And, you know, it's not just there, it's here as well, and it's everywhere. You know, and I think it's high time for du'at or aspiring du'at, people that want to get involved in da'wah, to realize...
It's Muslims generally, man.
Yeah, and especially in the da'wah, bro. Look, you know, let me put it this way. One thing, I'm gonna tell you guys to think about something quickly. I'm gonna ask you to think about something, and I want you to have a mental image of that thing immediately in your mind, okay? And I want you to hold that image, okay? Hold that image. And I'm gonna say the word now, and I want you to think about that thing immediately. Just like if I was to give you an example, if I was to say orange cat. Think about the image and hold it, okay? So I'm gonna get, that was just an example, but I'm gonna give you the real one now, okay?
I'm just thinking of orange ginger cats.
Yeah, okay,
now.
but I'll give you this
Garfield,
now. Yeah.
Eating lasagna.
There you go. Okay, everyone ready? Yeah? Okay. A door-to-door missionary. Get a picture of a door-to-door missionary. The guys that knock at your door, the missionaries. Get the image in your head, at your door, and freeze that in your mind right now. Just freeze that in your mind, okay? Look at the colors, make it vivid. Now, I guarantee many people at home as well, I don't know if you guys got this, but you'll see a guy And just let me know if it's true. You see a guy with a suit,
Yeah.
okay, with a tie,
Yeah.
maybe a dark suit, white shirt, light colored shirt, and a Bible under his arm, right? And we have this perception because this is what we see when we come across missionaries. You have a guy that's dressed well, but is always carrying a Bible with him. Trust me, I've come across missionaries that don't know what they're speaking about, with all due respect. But they have a Bible. They will open the Bible up and they'll show you verse here, John 3, this, and they'll read it out to you. They all do that. Now, how many times have we seen du'at carrying the Quran with them in their da'wah? How many times have I carried the Quran when I'm giving da'wah to people? Seldom. Rarely have I seen this happen, right? And obviously, we don't have to do what they're doing, or we don't have to carry a literal Quran with us always, but it gets the point across. We're not utilizing the Quran in our da'wah, and this is a problem, so we have to change it. So any aspiring du'at, people that want to get involved in da'wah, have this sort of as a prerequisite. You have to have a relationship, as Sheikh Fahd said, have a relationship with the Quran, which number one, first and foremost, benefits you as an individual, and then have a deep enough relationship where you could bring the Quran into your da'wah. Sure, you may make arguments, you may share different arguments, but always link it to the da'wah. To give some credit to our beloved brother Hamza, one thing that he's done in the Divine Reality, for example, his book, is every single argument that he makes, he links it to the Quran. He shows a Quranic basis to the argument, right? It's not saying you don't make your arguments. Don't talk to people in the terms that they understand, in the way, with ways that they understand, but bring the Quran into your da'wah. Sometimes directly refer to it. They have to have that link, because not only are you doing justice to your da'wah, because the Prophet's da'wah was the Quran, right? He was giving what he was receiving from Allah, right? And he was the best of people giving da'wah. There's no better da'wah than the Prophet ﷺ, right? And the prophets after him, right? So if he was using the Quran, we have to use the Quran in some respect. It's a part and parcel of the da'wah, right? But what it will also do, aside from doing justice to your da'wah, you will start to get the non-Muslim to appreciate the Quran. Because when you make powerful arguments, when you make powerful points and you link it to this book, he'll start to appreciate it, or she will start to appreciate the book you're carrying, the book you're calling them to, right? So there's so many benefits, honestly. And I think it goes without saying. So that's my take on what Sheikh Fahd said. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on what Sheikh Fahd sort of said, and your own thoughts in regards to the role of the Quran in the da'wah.
I mean, I did a bit of research for this episode, obviously.
Of course, you do research for every episode, mashallah.
Yeah, right.
Although it's supposed to be raw.
It was a last minute research.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to flip the question on me about what verse I would use.
I wasn't really interested, but...
You don't really care?
I'm joking.
Just care about yourself.
Okay, no, go ahead. What verse would you...
Well, following up after that non-Muslim does listen, when you do have that non-Muslim friend or colleague, whoever it may be, who has listened to the Quran, and you got them to listen to it, I think, and then I just came across this ayat in this book I was reading. It wasn't the Quran, but it was the chapter was based on the Quran, and the ayat goes as follows.
الله نزل أحسن الحديث كتابا متشابها مثانية تقشعر منه جلود الذين يخشون ربهم ثم تلين جلودهم وقلوبهم إلى ذكر الله ذلك هدى الله يهدي به من يشاء ومن يضلل الله فما له من هاد. So
I think this is like a profound ayat for them to actually sort of actually read after they've just listened to the Quran. Because I think that's the sort of sensation, like when I do see a non-Muslim listening to the Quran, I think those are the sensations I kind of see within them.
So I think, guys, we should wrap this up. But before we finish, there's one thing I want to ask. We should always end on a practical note.
Okay.
We should give something to the brothers and sisters that spend all this time listening to us just go on. Yeah.
Okay. Just the advert times.
I want to make the last link now. Remember what we said, the discussion today is about the Quran, the Dawah and Ramadan. We've spoken about Ramadan. We've spoken about the link between Ramadan and the Quran. We've spoken about the link between the Quran and Dawah. Now let's finish off by talking about the link between Ramadan and the Dawah.
Okay.
Right? So how can we, as Muslims, going into Ramadan 2021, during lockdown, be involved in the Dawah?
All right, so we've got a few options here. One of them is the ones who are keen on the Dawah itself and who want to learn how to convey the call of Islam and learn how to actually share Islam. They should visit a website called training.iERA.org. So
You're saying a website, like it's some sort of external body to Saqib, Saqib Ali working at iERA.
yeah, well, it's not attached to me, is it?
It's
So
our website.
our website.
Come on, bro.
I don't want to make it out to be too much of an advert.
No, it's not. It's not.
Even though it's got iERA in it. But yeah, so training.iERA.org. The first course is the Dawah training course from Sheikh Green, mashallah. And then after that, there's the New Muslim mentorship course, which is quite short in comparison. Once you do those two courses, you actually submit a script, a GoRap script of sorts. If you do the course, you'd understand what we're talking about in terms of the GoRap. And then we'd actually onboard you as a volunteer once you pass everything, inshallah. And you actually have an interview. There's an interview process to become a mentor. So that's one part of it.
I could potentially let us have a look at something so we can see a little bit about this Dawah training course a little bit more.
So you know what? Let's play one of the trailers. The ones that have been hiding on the shelves.
All right, let's play the trailer, guys.
In the archives.
I hope no one walks in.
Allahu Akbar.
Oh, forgot my bucket. What are you doing?
Sorry,
What are you getting?
sorry, I just need to. I need to go back to the office. So, very sorry about this.
Look, that's not how to give dawah, leaving people shocked and even more confused about Islam. Learn how to give effective dawah with Sheikh Abdul Rahim Green, iERA's free online dawah training course, where he teaches you the GoRap method. Click the link and register today.
So yeah. Hope everyone enjoyed that. But
So training.iERA.org.
training.iERA.org.
You
Do
got
the
two
courses. Yeah.
Dawah training course, New Muslim mentorship course, and doing both of them, you'll be well set to give da'wah and to support, start taking care of new Muslims, inshallah.
That's
Imran,
what-
that was really amazing acting in that skit just now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what can I say? I'm a natural born actor, I guess.
Yeah. Natural born buffoon.
Yeah. No, it's just you. Mashallah, Jamal's a brilliant director. That's why he
Okay.
gets the best out of us. And just seeing your presence as
I don't know. I think he just
as
says. I think Jamal just says to you, just be yourself, and then
Yeah, just don't
it's easy. It's easy, isn't it? Yeah. But okay, and also, so if you're somebody who wants to get work on their grounding in Islam, then there's newmuslim.iera.org as well. We spoke about it in the last episode. The actual course is going through a review process. It's nearly there, Jamal. Believe me, inshallah.
After a very, very long time, we're nearly there.
Okay, we're nearly there. It's just going through a little review process. And that's a course for new Muslims. And it's also for non-Muslims as well, if they want to understand a bit more about Islam and what this change of life in their faith is going to entail. And even for born Muslims who just want to work on their grounding, on their foundations. You know, the 6 pillars of faith, the 5 pillars of Islam. So yeah, so that's that.
Brilliant. Brothers and sisters, that was it. That's episode 3 of ReRooted Raw. May Allah bless you guys. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this Ramadan an extremely productive Ramadan for all of us.
Inshallah.
One in which we draw closer to the Quran, we engage in the da'wah, and we engage the Quran in our da'wah, inshallah. May Allah bless you guys. All of the relevant links in the description box below. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Breaking out the cage, tell 'em lock the chain. Adrenaline and rage, I may never change.